Blog Talk Radio.
Hey, John, are you there?
All right, now look, Fonker, I'm a patient man. That's what 19 months in a Vietnamese prison camp will do to you. But I will be watching you, studying your every move. And if I find that you are trying to corrupt my firstborn child, I will bring you down, baby. I will bring you down to Chinatown.
I think we might be good.
That sounds good now.
Yeah.
That's some technical difficulty that happens, you know what I mean?
Yeah. All right. Prevo, are you there?
Oh,
I have no... What's that?
So like we lost him, huh?
Yeah, we lost our host. I think he's gonna reboot up the show. So Jersey, if you want, why don't we both hang up? We'll both recall back in, and hopefully we'll get the show up and running.
I'll do that. I'll do that now. All right, take care.
Okay, appreciate it, man. Thank you. Bye bye.
Yep. Thank you. Bye bye.
Okay, everybody, this is your host, Jumpin' John Prevo. We're having a few technical difficulties. I'm hoping we're going to be able to rectify them. So in the meantime, we're going to have our resident guru, JB, call back in, and we'll have Jersey in the house with his weekly questions. So are you there?
What's up, guys? Jersey here.
All right. Oh, it's Jersey. There we go. All right, I think our technical difficulties have been rectified.
Ready to roll.
Wait for JB to come back on, but Jersey, why don't you go ahead and start us off with your questions, and we'll see how we can help.
Yep. Two quick questions, guys. In the semis, I got 3 running backs. You need to pick 2. It's a PPR league, but 10-point rushing touchdown, as we know. 10 points 5-point bonuses if you hit 100 yards rushing, too. I got Cedric Benson, I got Beanie Wells, and I have Blunt. I need 2 of those 3. Right now I have Benson and Beanie Wells in the lineup, but I just want to get your opinion and see what you guys think.
Yeah, out of the 3, personally, they're the 2 I like the best. I think Blount's got a tough matchup this week, and I think Wells is due to bounce back after what after the disappointment from last week. But again, he was facing some stiff competition. But actually, Wells and Benson, out of those 3, they're the ones I like the best. I don't really see much for Blount this week. I don't know what if Prevost feels the same way I do about it, but I think he's got the toughest matchup.
Well, I'll tell you what. I'm going out on a limb here, guys, and we'll hear about this a little bit later in the show. But I'm kind of down on Beanie Wells this week, and Cleveland. Maybe it was just the Pittsburgh matchup, but Cleveland came to play last week, and I'm wondering if they don't replicate that against Arizona and make a surprising tough day for Beanie Wells. So, obviously you want to get Benson in your lineup. It's hard to keep him out. I mean, his upside's not that great, but he's definitely, good for about 100 yards, and a score, you would assume. And against, a team like St. Louis, probably more. And I know Blount's disappeared a little bit at times, but, he's the type that can go off at any point, run over some people. So, the safe play would be to sit Blount, but I'm saying if you're concerned going out on a limb, you might want to sit Beanie.
Okay.
And Blount's facing Dallas this week, right?
I think Tampa Bay's got the pass a lot because Dallas is going to throw.
Yeah.
And they can run against you. Any runner can tear up the Tampa Bay run defense, so it could be a high-scoring game for Dallas. So Tampa Bay could abandon the run game. But I've seen them not abandon too. So it's like you flip a coin, you don't know which Tampa Bay offensive coordinator is going to show up and what they're going to call based on whether they're ahead or behind a lot. You know what I mean?
Well, they're going to go with what's working for them that day as well too. So if Blount's moving the ball, they're probably going to have to stick with the run if it's effective. But I just don't know how effective it's going to be against that Dallas D.
Yeah, I think Dallas going to be a little mad for losing to the Giants. They choked in the fourth quarter.
Oh, absolutely.
I think they're going to be a little venom after, even though it's a road game for Dallas. I think it's going to be a little venom after,
The other concern I would have on the flip side against Blount is Josh Freeman, I believe, has a shoulder bruise, and I'm not sure of his exact status. So you're right, they may be in a little bit more trouble. So, again, the safe is definitely the Beanie Wells in the lineup.
All right, and my other question is, same like PPR, get 100 passing yards, you get 5 bonus points, point per reception. I got Calvin Johnson, who should be a no-brainer. I have Colson, who I have in the lineup now, and I was looking to sit V. Jackson, Jordy Nelson, because I don't know if Jordy Nelson's going to be, they spread that ball out there just because Jennings not there doesn't automatically make him a number 1. They spread it around. He does better in 4-man sets versus 2-man receivers, but he also, not that he chokes, but he seems to struggle on the road. And Kansas City's bad, but out of those 4, which 2 do you like? You got Calvin Johnson, V. Jax, Jordy Nelson, Colston. That's my last question.
Hey, John, you want to take a crack at that first?
I don't. Honestly, I don't know how you can keep Jordy Nelson out of the lineup this week. With Jennings down, it's just the ball does get spread around a lot in Green Bay, but without Jennings definitely in there, everyone else is going to have to step it up a little bit more. So, and the way Green Bay is slinging that ball, I think you have to keep Jordan Nelson in the lineup there. So, how many can you start?
Out of the 4, you start 2. So normally it's always Calvin Johnson or one of them. I was thinking Calvin Johnson and maybe Colston, because if Graham's hurt a little bit, Colston may be the go-to guy. Although I didn't play Colston last week, I played Jordy Nelson and Calvin Johnson. I would have got more points. I would have got 34 from Colston. Who would have thought that? But,
and that's why you got that sour taste in your mouth, because Colston went off last week and he had those touchdowns. But I think I got to agree with John here, man. Jordy Nelson, I'll tell you what, if it wasn't for Greg Jennings, Jordy Nelson would be the number one on this team. He's phenomenal. He's got speed. He's got great hands. He's a go-to type target for Aaron Rodgers. And sure, the guy spreads the ball around, but when he's got 50 touchdowns on the season, so there's definitely plenty of love to go around to everybody. And I think Nelson's gonna have a good. I would expect them to have a really good week. I think they're just going to keep on rolling. I know they try to downplay the whole 16-0 thing, but you got to think that these players want that, man. That's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. They've got an opportunity to keep rolling, and I don't think there's any quit in any of these guys. And I think Nelson's just going to absolutely go off. And Colston, to me, granted, I know he's a great player down there. You got a similar situation. They like to spread the ball around a lot, but normally speaking, I think Nelson's a more consistent play than Colston. You get a lot of that down in New Orleans where you don't know who the hot hand is this week type of thing. But like you said it yourself, Rodgers spreads the ball around to everybody every week. So it's not like a hit or miss. You know all of these guys are going to get catches. It's what are they going to do with them. And the position that he's in this week, I think he's going to do a lot with them because they, like I said, I don't think they're going to let a 16-0 season slip them by.
All right, I'll go. Yeah, because what I was thinking was, I think it's been a long time since Kansas City allowed a 100-yard rusher. I think San Antonio Holmes scored a touchdown last week but didn't get 100 yards. So that's why I was wondering. I mean, who would have thought that Shannon Green would have blown them up like they didn't have two back-to-back games? I mean, you just didn't see that. But again,
absolutely.
Like the fantasy, it makes it very interesting. Like I said, I figure because I didn't play Colston last week, I figured he would blow up because I didn't play him. And like I said, Calvin Johnson killed me because I have Stafford. Calvin Johnson's been killing me the last couple of weeks, but Nelson did well because I sent V-Jacks and Colston. But Colston blew up, got me. Would have been 34 points, but I still won. But that's what I wanted your guys' opinion to see what if we were thinking alike or a little different. So I appreciate you helping.
That's the key. This time of year, you got to keep winning because it's probably crunch time. I'm imagining that this week or next week is probably going to be your league Super Bowl. So
correct. This week is the semis, and then Christmas weekend would be a week from this coming weekend would be the finals. Yep, would be the Super Bowl. That's correct. Week 16. Yep. You're right.
Hey, well, good luck. Maybe you can come home with a championship.
I hope it'll be another one. We did two last year. Hopefully another one next year. My son's won too. So, but we've won actually 4 championships over the last 7 years. So we're kind of rolling. You know what I mean? So we'll see what happens. But appreciate your help, guys. Best of luck to you guys in your leagues this weekend if you're going into the semis. And appreciate the advice. And hopefully we'll talk next Tuesday night again. Take care, guys. Appreciate your time.
Sounds good. Thanks, Jersey.
Yep. Thanks a lot, guys. Take care. Yep. Bye-bye.
All right, great. Jersey in the house, regular caller. We're going to sling it over one more. We have a chat room question, so why don't we get right to that? Is that all right, JB?
Yeah, sounds good.
All right, so, again, another semifinal. It's a 1-point PPR, and Yogun27 is looking for a flex position. And he's got Santana Moss versus the Giants or Felix Jones versus the Bucks. So Santana Moss, Felix Jones. Who do you like, JB?
Wow. Given, if you're not talking a super stud, just given a normal matchup, I seem to like the running back over the receiver. Now, I know Santana Moss is the go-to guy down there in Washington, and they lost their tight end and Fred Davis for the rest of the year and whatnot. But, man, after seeing what Jones did last week, I can't help to think that, that running game, they just seem to be able to plug somebody in there, and that line does what it needs to do. And I just think that the running back position in Dallas is productive no matter who's back there. And I don't know. If I had to pick one, I'm going with Felix Jones.
I'm Felix Jones. We'll go over him a little bit later in the show as well. I'm feeling a lot of love for him this week, and I typically go with the running back over wide receiver as well. And I'm not sure. Santana Moss is definitely the go-to guy in Washington. I think he only caught 4 balls I think last week. One of them was on a gimmick play. So I think we got the most talent of the wide receiving core. I think, Grossman, he just slings it. He doesn't care who's around. If it's Moss, Gaffney, whomever, he's just throwing it up. So, I think you need to be careful, assuming that Moss is definitely the go-to guy. So I'm definitely going with Felix Jones as well. And we got one more question, and that would be Big Ben versus the 49ers or Tebow versus the Patriots. So this is a very interesting question with Tebow. So let's go ahead, JB. Big Ben versus the 49ers or Tebow versus the Patriots?
Well, you have to if Big Ben's healthy, how can you not start the guy? I mean, he's been very consistent throughout the year, and, no denying his toughness. He came back in that Thursday night game, and he played. Granted, you could see he couldn't step into his passes and whatnot, so I'd be a little bit concerned about him against a very good defense in the Niners. But if he plays, I don't think they're going to risk. At this point, they're a playoff team. I don't think they're going to risk hurting him. So if he's not well enough to play, I don't think he will, but I think he'll play. So with that being said, I like him. Now, week in and week out, we've been talking about Tebow since he took over the reins, what's it been now, 6-7 weeks ago. And every week, and he'll come up against some stout defenses. He played the Jets. He played the, and I don't know. I pick him up in 2 leagues, and I've yet to start him, and I don't think the guy's ever got me less than 18 fantasy points on my bench every week. So, yeah, it's tough. I mean, if there's any question about Big Ben going this week, I would feel if I was forced in a position where I had to start Tebow, I don't think I would sweat it. Now, generally speaking, against New England, you're happy that your quarterback's facing them if he's one to throw the ball. Well, Tebow is really not your quintessential pocket passer, so I don't know how, running the option against New England, I just don't know how effective it would be. Wow. I would go with...
Sorry, go ahead.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, but that's the same thing I was thinking of, is the fact that, you can really sling that ball against New England, but I don't know if Tebow can, and that has yet to be seen. I mean, he's had flashes, right?
Sure.
But, if you can't do that consistently against New England, you're going to be in a big hole where you have to pass, and they know it's coming. So I'm not really sure how effective Tebow's going to be. You're right. He gets you 15 points solid a week, and some weeks I lost a week where he got 26, but I don't know how much more he can get for you. Whereas Roethlisberger, he could throw for 3 touchdowns, and 300 yards against San Francisco. As the defense is.
It's funny. Normally if your team's facing a Packers team or a New England team, you expect them to be from behind, and you're happy to have a quarterback that's going to have to throw against them. But I think New England wants nothing more than to put up big numbers and just play a one-dimensional game where they know that Tebow's going to have to try to air it out. And I think they're going to be licking their chops, knowing that that's really all they're going to have to face. I think that McGahee may suffer in this game. I think Tebow's running yards may suffer a little bit in this game. And, yeah, if he's forced to have to throw it, I don't know. He certainly hasn't shown us yet that he can do it consistently. And I don't know if against New England's a good week to have to start. Here's what I may offer, and then see how you like this. The New England-Denver game is a 4:15 game. And the Pittsburgh-San Francisco game is the Monday night game. So I might, and there are 2, there's a Thursday night and a Saturday game. So I might take a look at the lineup, see how the scores are going. If you need the upside points, maybe you do go with Pittsburgh. The problem is that you don't know if Roethlisberger, it could be something where, this is still early in the week now, so it could be something that, you won't know his status until Monday night. I think if you've got points and you're looking for, 15, 20 points, if that's what's really going to help you, then you go with Tebow. If you're behind by a lot, maybe you roll the dice with Roethlisberger, because Tebow hasn't proven that he can explode on any given game. No, well, he's proven a lot. He proved it was like, again, he did it last week, and I know that we have the Tebow rule, but my gosh, he was almost my surprise of the week again this week, because week in and week out, don't ask me how he gets it done, but he gets it done, and last week he certainly didn't put up too many impressive numbers. I think they only scored a total of 13 points, so obviously two long Prater field goals and only the lone touchdown, but yeah, he certainly makes it exciting to watch. You can't tell me that you weren't watching that game and just waiting to see, the miracle happen again. And he seems a way to pull it out of his hat every week.
Yeah, I just, so I'm looking on my Sportsline website, which the scoring may be a little different, but it's, it's fairly standard scoring. It's 6 points for a touchdown. You get a point for every 30 yards, so the scoring is actually probably going to be a little bit higher than in some of your other standard leagues. And, he's had a 24-point game against Miami, a 29-point game against Oakland, and then everything else is 15 to 20 points.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. I mean, he's good for roughly 60 yards rushing and a pass and a touchdown one way or the other every week. So that's 12 points. And then some passing yards. So that's what I'm saying. I think, he's consistent. He's going to get you the 15 to 20 points. With, since it's against New England, maybe there's a possibility of a little bit more. So if you just need those solid points, that's, you like Tebow. But, as tough as San Francisco is, they're a little bit easier through the air. Pittsburgh is a passing team, and as Antonio Brown proved the other week, they could score on any play through the air. So if you need the upside,
anywhere on the field.
Yeah. So and maybe we'll get into Tebow a little bit later, because I can understand how he's 7-1. I'm just not sold him as a quarterback, but this is fantasy, so I guess we don't have to worry about whether he's a true quarterback or not, do we?
No, that's always decision. Thank God we don't have to make it.
Yeah. All right. Well, wow, it's been an interesting first segment. We really haven't gotten anything except for a couple questions and, of course, some technical difficulties. So why don't we go ahead with some of the news real quick, and then we'll take a break, and we'll come back and talk about injuries and ads for the week. So if anyone hasn't heard, we had two coaches that were fired this week. Todd Haley was fired by the Chiefs, and Tony Sparano was fired by the Dolphins. So we're gonna have a little bit of a coaching carousel. It's 3 positions that's open already, and I would expect at least 3 more before the year's out. So just make sure.
Yeah, I think we'll be adding San Diego to that list if they don't make the playoffs this year.
Should be, but whether we will be, I'm not sure. But I think you're right on that. There's actually, we could probably go down the list. There's a lot of teams that probably could be looking for coaches, Philly included, but I'm not so sure that will happen. But it's always interesting. The reasoning right now is that some teams wanted, at least in Miami, I think you wanted to get a head start on the coaching search. In Kansas City, there may be some behind-the-scenes issues that were coming about, so I'm not really sure.
No, I think you nailed it absolutely. I think that it's been a long time coming for Tony Sparano. I think that they've given him, as many chances as they could, and I think you nailed it. I think by cutting him a little early now, and then, like you said, just to start that search, there's rumors of, Gruden and of Cowher and stuff like that, and I really don't know if one of those guys would even take that job. I think that those are the types of coaches who are going to want pretty much, free reign. And even from an office job, I mean, Parcells was kind of promised that, and, he went down to Miami, and he thought he would be able to be the end-all, be-all, and it wound up, it didn't work. And when you get those big egos in those big positions, they want to be able to run the team their way. And I think, some of those big names that are out there are really going to have to consider if they're going to have quite the freedom that they're going to want to coach down there. I definitely think that they're willing to spend the money, and I think that they're a serious contender, and I think they'll go hard after one of those big names that are still available. But I'm just really not that sure. Like you mentioned, there's going to be some other. I'll tell you what, if a San Diego job opens, I think that's going to be real enticing to a lot of those players. I mean, you can't beat it. Similar situation to Miami. You've got like the weather, and you've got the climate and the whole West Coast thing, and then I think that they'll be able to run the team a little bit more the way they want to. But yeah, I don't think that Haley was a good fit with the Chiefs from jump. Like you said, there's probably a lot of things behind the scenes there. It just seems that it wasn't really a good fit, and they weren't really happy. And I don't know. I think they're going to be in a little bit of trouble. I think they're going to be a little bit more hard-pressed. They're going to be struggling to find a coach. I don't know, man. That team right now just, to me, seems a mess. And I certainly wouldn't be excited about taking over that situation.
Yeah, it's hard. You're right. Big-name coaches may not be excited, but, those that have yet to be a head coach or need to rebound, it doesn't matter whether you're excited about it, you're going to take it, right? So.
Oh, absolutely.
And, Kansas City was a playoff team last year, and Miami obviously has a lot of potential, a lot of players that are playing hard, as evidenced by their recent surge. So, you got to look for the positives in each team, so.
Yeah, but even all year, I mean, Miami could very well be the best. What are they now? 5-8, 6-8, whatever. I mean, they're for a losing record. I mean, they play tough every week. I mean, even in their losses earlier in the season when they looked bad and or record-wise looked bad, but they've been playing tough all year. And like you said, and as of late, they've been coming on. They've been playing really good. And I don't know. I think maybe Sperano. I don't know if he's the answer. If he was all their problems down there. But sometimes just shaking things up from the top can really make a big difference. And I wouldn't be surprised if Miami came back next year as a contender, and we saw them in the playoffs again.
I wouldn't be surprised. Actually, I mean, honestly, in this league, in this day and age, nothing really surprises me with quick turnarounds. But something you might want to focus on this year is, for whatever reason, teams tend to play harder when there's an interim coach that's been assigned. So you may actually see a little bit of a surge in both teams for the remaining 3 games. It's an odd phenomenon that seems to happen. When a coach gets fired and an interim coach goes in there, the teams really play hard, and that may go back to something. We in the beginning of the year we talked about teams going suck for luck, and how from a football standpoint it just doesn't happen because when you're a player, you're out there, you're giving it all, and I think that's kind of the same thing when a coach gets fired. No matter whether, even if you're a player, you like the coach or you didn't, you take it personally, and you kind of think of what I could have done better to have him keep his job. And I think sometimes that helps him on the field, at least temporarily. So you may actually see a surge from Miami and Kansas City. So just something to think about, for the remainder of the season. But, again, it's just the type of thing where, you're in your semifinals, in your finals, you're not really looking to take chances. So that's not something you want to bank on. But, just something to look at.
Absolutely.
I'll tell you what, we're at the first half hour, so it's been an interesting show so far. But let's go ahead and take a break. We'll hear a word from our sponsors. We are the Burlington Auto Group Kickass Fantasy Football Show, and with the questions and the discussions, just make sure everyone knows that we have our toll-free line 877-511-1024, and you can join us on Skype 347-539-5402. So let's take a moment and we'll hear from our sponsors.
When he was born, he slapped the doctors. He can find a needle in a haystack, blindfolded. He sunk your battleship. He's the most fascinating Chevrolet dealer in the world, and he's only at Burlington Chevrolet. Right now, drive home a new 2012 Cruze LS starting at just $16,968, or a new 2011 Silverado 1500 as low as $22,968.
You don't always buy a new Chevrolet, but when you do, visit Burlington Chevrolet. Stay thrifty, my friends.
Burlington Chevrolet, New Jersey's #1 truck dealer. Minutes from Northeast Philadelphia, just off the Burlington-Bristol Bridge on Route 130. Like us on Facebook, and be sure to visit us online at burlingtonchevy.com to see our featured vehicle of the week. It's better in Burlington. Stock numbers 134043, 376129. Taxes, tax, and fees additional. Not all buyers will qualify. Call 888-788-9765 for details. Offers end 9/30/11.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Burlington Auto Group Kickass Fantasy Football Show. I am your host, Jumpin' John Prevost, and we have a solo resident guru, JB, is on the line. So I want to thank you for your participation, JB. And
no problem, man. Just happy to be here.
Great. I also want to remind everyone that we do have a free website, which is www.kickassfantasyfootball.com, where you'll get some insights from the commission professor and some waiver wire pickups, some great articles, specifically the If Only article by yours truly every week, lamenting the choices that he should have made rather than the choices he did make. And it's a great site. So thank you for all the callers for the show. And let's get into it. About this time, we're going to go into the injuries for the week. So there were quite a few big names, and let's go into it. And we'll talk about the injury, what it means for the rest of the year, and who is replacing them. So Matt Moore is concussion, and he is out indefinitely. So, which is a shame, JB. I think Matt Moore, is really showing something down in Miami, and then all of a sudden he's out, and his season is done. I think he was fighting for a starting job next year. What do you think? Do you think he earned one?
Absolutely, and he put up a good case for it. He's looked really good. He's been consistent. He's certainly not going to lose you any games. He's proven to be, if nothing else, a great game manager. He doesn't throw too many picks. He looks pretty damn good, and he was, it kind of just adds insult to injury with what's going on down there with Miami, with this week, and they're losing their coach, and now they lose a quarterback, and yeah, it's a shame. And again, we've talked about it throughout the year, but with these head injuries and they get these concussions, and yeah, you don't know when he's going to return. It could be, and especially there's only 3 more weeks left in the season, so who knows? It may be J.P. Lossman for the rest of the way. And, wow, I mean, that's a name I haven't heard. I didn't even know he was still around the league. I remember when he was playing back in Buffalo, and, I mean, I'm going back, what's that, 8 years, 10 years, I guess? Or I don't even know how long it's been since we've seen Lossman on the field. But, wow, he's definitely got some weapons to play with down there. Reggie Bush has been looking good. You got Brandon Marshall. Devon Best has been coming on strong. So, you get, depends how rusty he is. You always talk about quarterbacks coming in and, catching up to the speed of the game, playing at practice and playing when somebody's actually trying to hurt you or, it's 2 totally different scenarios. So it's going to, I think a lot of it's just going to depend on how quickly he can get himself acclimated and get up to the speed of the game. But, I mean, he's proven to, he's been productive in the past. He's had some success when he was in Buffalo, and I don't know, man. If you own any of those players outside of Reggie Bush, but if you own any of the receivers, you may be a little bit nervous right now. But it could actually help the running game.
Well, okay, and you made a good point that J.P. Lawson has had success. Obviously, not sustained success. And, you're going into your semifinals, your finals. Week 17, the ESPN leagues play the finals, but I don't know too many other leagues that do play their finals in Week 17. But here's a quick look at the next 2 games in Miami with a quarterback that does have, starting experience. And I'll say significant starting experience, just from the fact that, it's not like he was a 1-game injury replacement. His next 2 games are Miami and New England. So,
and teams that he's, being that he played in Buffalo for all those years, they're 2 teams that he's, he's seen before, and he's played against those systems, and then there are teams that he should be able to have some throwing success against. Again, if he, just depending how quick he can get back up to game speed.
I mean, yeah, they're teams. You're right. The teams that he's familiar with, and they're also teams that have had their problems defensively. So it could be. And as I mentioned before the break, Miami fired Tony Sperano, and football teams usually play a little bit better for their interim coaches for whatever reason for a couple games. So it's going to be interesting watching Miami.
Yeah.
But, again, it is J.P. Lawson, so let's move on.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Kevin Cobb, concussion, out indefinitely. We talked about the head injuries, and in comes, John Skelton, and, kind of turned up for a little bit against San Francisco. Big surprise there, actually, against San Francisco defense. John Skelton came in earlier this year, had a couple good games, most notably against Philadelphia, which, there's been talk about how Kevin Cobb was calling out their, some of the defensive plays and all that, and then really just stunk it up. So, what do you think of John Skelton and Larry Fitzgerald? I mean, what's going to happen with him?
Yeah, again, it's scary. When we pick these guys, these stud receivers, and to me, a stud receiver's always iffy. You always know their potential. I mean, let's take Dwayne Bowe, for example. The guy's great. You know that he's got the hands. You know he's got size. You know he's got speed. But, it's just, if all the pieces aren't in place, it's tough for those big playmakers to make those big plays. And, Fitzgerald, you nailed it. I mean, I think he's going to be the one who's going to feel it the most, without his starting QB in there. But, like you said, Skelton, I mean, he surprised us all. That 1 week, what did he throw, 3-4 touchdowns? So, I don't know, were they or were they not actually stealing plays from Philadelphia, and did they know what they were doing? I mean, I really don't know, and I don't know how well he knew the defense. I'm certainly sure he was very familiar with the Eagles' offense, but I don't know how true that could have been and how much involved he was with knowing the plays that the defense were going to be sending in. But regardless, I mean, Skelton, he has come in and he's proven that he can do some good. I don't know. I'm scared. I've got Fitzgerald in one league that I'm fortunate enough to have made the playoffs, and I'm a little bit scared. This is a guy that I've counted on, and he's probably one of the reasons that I've gotten into the playoffs. And now without his starting quarterback in there, I'm worried. So I guess he is too.
Yeah, I tell you. So here we go. Skelton played against St. Louis, which is been god awful on defense lately. He was 20-35 for 22 yards and a touchdown. In Philly, he exploded. He had 315 yards and 3 touchdowns. Then he played San Francisco, was 6 for 19 for 99 yards and 3 interceptions. And again against St. Louis, was 12 for 23 for 114 yards and 2 interceptions. So the fact that he had a great
2 good games, 2 bad games.
Yeah, had a great game against San Francisco, but just makes me wonder. Upcoming are Cleveland and Cincinnati. Cleveland's got Joe Hayden, the shutdown corner. Cincinnati's been a pretty tough defense to play against. They can pressure the quarterback. So yeah, I'm not sold on Skelton, to be honest with you, and that will be reflected later on in my gut of the week. So yeah. All right, and then another concussion, of course. There's a suspension out of it. Colt McCoy got a concussion, but I'm not really sure. He came back in to play, which obviously was a mistake. But I'm not actually sure what his status is of this week. I'm not sure if he's going to try and tough it out. He's really the only hope that Cleveland has for a win. So, from their perspective, you hope he does come in. But I'm not sure, again, with the concussions being floated around this week, I'm not sure he does play this week. couple other quarterbacks. Matt Hasselbeck has a calf injury. Jake Locker came in and looked, I thought, pretty good. Stole a rushing touchdown from Chris Johnson. I think Jake Locker looks like an NFL quarterback right now. What do you think, JB?
Yeah, no, he did. He came in, he got the job done. He looked solid. But anything I've read, it's pretty much, if Hasselbeck's healthy, they say he will play. So, and I don't know, I guess it's still a little early in the week. It's only Tuesday, but I don't know. He's a tough guy. He's been around the block, and we all know that if he can play, he will. So, but yeah, Locker I think is going to be, he's going to benefit from being able to sit behind a veteran like Hasselbeck and learn. I mean, God, we saw what it did for Aaron Rodgers, right? So, but sometimes, these kids, you get these young, prospects out of college, and you have a good veteran around that they can actually learn a lot of the game from and learn it through their eyes and learn from their experience. And, yeah, I agree. I think Locker came in and looked good. He looked solid. I mean, he certainly didn't, he didn't look like nervous. He didn't look bad. I remember when Colt McCoy last year, he came in his first game, and unfortunately he had to play Pittsburgh, his first NFL game ever. But when you saw him, he just looked like a deer caught in the headlights. The poor kid looked scared shitless, and he looked very scared. And you can't blame him, facing a defense like that. And but yeah, I mean, Locker, I think, in years to come, I think he's going to be good. I think he's going to be around for a long time. I think he'll have success in the NFL. As far as this year, like I said, they say if Hasselbeck can play, he will. So I don't really know how much more airtime we're going to see out of Locker this year.
Yeah, I'm wondering. I'm wondering the opposite. I'm wondering if that Locker's come in, had two pretty good, solid performances in relief of Hasselbeck, and I'm wondering if they just don't give him the keys right now. And limited duty, granted, he's shown that he can be an NFL quarterback. And Matt Hasselbeck's a great guy, and obviously he's a great person to play behind for most of the year. But I'm kind of thinking the opposite. I think Locker's coming in. I think he's in to stay. Barring a meltdown, Tennessee's still got slight playoff hopes. But barring a meltdown, I think maybe Locker's in for good. And so it'll be interesting to see how he holds up. So yeah, I think we need to put our $1 bet on that. What do you think, JB?
Yeah, well, I'm for it, and I'm going to say that Hasselbeck starts for the last 3 games of the season.
All right, we got $1 on that one, and
you got that's a big George Washington, brother.
All right, so there you have it. An official argument here on the Burlington Auto Group Kickass Fantasy Football Show. Big Locker, Matt Hasselbeck. You heard it here first. Okay. There you go. Look, we mentioned a little bit earlier, Josh Freeman has a shoulder bruise. And, again, I'm not really sure what his status is for the week. And, let's face it, from a passing perspective, Tampa Bay has really not held up to the expectations for this year. And if Josh Freeman is out, all bets are off for Tampa Bay because, I think I should really say all hope is lost. So I'm really hoping that he does go back in. But what have you heard about his shoulder bruise, and what do you think his chances are this week?
Well, anybody who listens to our show knows that I went after Freeman heavy this year. I drafted him in 3 of my 4 main leagues, and sadly disappointed. Thank God I had Fitzpatrick as a backup in 1 league, and I had Eli in a backup in a league. So I've been able to limp through, and have done well without him in my fantasy lineup. But to be honest with you, like you said, whether he plays, whether he doesn't play, I don't think it's going to have much fantasy outcome either way. I mean, the receivers down there aren't doing anything. Their only hope down there is LeGarrette Blount. And we've discussed a little bit earlier, he's got to face a Dallas defense this week, so we don't know how much we're going to expect from him. I don't really know how much fantasy impact Freeman's going to have, whether he plays or whether he doesn't. I don't think it's going to affect. Put it this way, if we're in week 16, we're in most people's playoff leagues, and I don't think anybody who's in the playoffs has any concern about whether or not they need to start Josh Freeman or not this week. Can we agree on that?
We can agree on that.
So, yeah, I mean, like from a real football perspective, sure, we know that the guy's got tons of talent. We saw it last year. We saw glimpses of it this year, but for some reason they just haven't really been able to put together the pieces and to be, any sort of consistency this year. But I wish the guy well, and I think he can come back next year and hopefully, have more reflecting the numbers that he put up last year for us, because I had a lot of hope for him, and we know he's talented. I don't know what went wrong for Tampa Bay this year, but they just look awful.
Yeah, it may cost Raheem Morris his job. So I kind of we both Ray and I, before you came on board, we're espousing Tampa Bay as well, specifically LeGarrette Blount, but Mike Williams and Kellen Winslow. I mean, we thought Tampa Bay, based on last year and based on maybe the defense, really gonna do it this year. So it's kind of a disappointment all around.
Absolutely.
Let's move on. A couple big running backs and a couple big, one big running back, one small running back, a couple big receivers on the injury front. DeMarco Murray, fractured his ankle, high ankle sprain as well. Although, I think if you fracture your ankle, you really cared about a high ankle sprain. I don't think so. And he is out for the season. And, we've talked a little bit about Felix Jones already, who will be coming in and, especially with the Shard Choice gone, he will be the workhorse for Dallas. So, a little bit of mourning since, DeMarco Murray was on my fantasy line this week, which I lost. And Felix Jones. We'll talk a little bit about Felix. I'm sure we'll be talking about him a little bit later in the show. What are your thoughts on Felix Jones?
Well, like I said, Jones, I just think it's more that system than anything. Like you look at the old Shanahan running back systems back in Denver back in the day. It didn't matter who they plugged in there. They just seemed to get the job done. And that's what I see from this Dallas running game. I mean, he looked decent earlier this year before he got hurt. Then he got hurt, and Murray came in, and he just exploded onto the scene. His first game, granted, he got to face a weak, Rams rush defense, and he went off for however many 100 yards and however many touchdowns. And he's been real consistent ever since. But, it's a shame that he went down, he got hurt. You hate to see young talent get hurt. I mean, an ankle injury like that, it could really affect him the rest of his career. We don't know how that's going to heal up and how well he's ever going to be able to play again. Excuse me. But Jones, I think, is going to be fine. Again, I think it's the system more than anything. I mean, he's proven to be a productive runner in the past. I think Dallas is kicking themselves a little bit right now for thinking, oh, wow, we got Murray, they let Choice go like you had mentioned, and they figured they had Felix Jones, and they just figured that running backs were expendable, but they're realizing now that, what a premium they are in this league. And I think, but Dallas has been making a lot of mistakes as of late, and again, that's something that I want to talk about a little bit later myself, but I don't know. I think Jones is going to be just fine, and as long as he stays healthy, I think Dallas is going to be just fine.
All right. Yeah, I agree with you on that. I agree with you on the mistakes. I've actually pointed out a few myself in previous weeks as well. Brandon Sane, who was Professor's, big name for pickups for a couple weeks on his waiver wire, he is out with a concussion. And Starks was hurting, so Ryan Grant filled the load. I have to tell you, it's kind of funny. My brother was IMing me during the game, and the many times he's had Grant over the years, he was lamenting the fact that now he's going off, scoring 2 touchdowns, getting a long run. So Ryan Grant seems to be the running back in Green Bay. So does that bode well for him? What do you think, JB?
Yeah, I I actually think it does. I mean, Ryan Grant, he's another one with a ton of talent and just never been able to stay healthy. I mean, that's always been his biggest downfall is the injury bug. When he's been healthy, if you look at him I think it was the end of 2 years ago when he wound up coming in at the last, 5-6 games of the season. And I think he was like the most productive back in all of football over that span. But again, he gets hurt, and you can't put up any numbers when you're not playing. So he's another one. As long as he stays healthy, I think he's got size, he's got some speed, he's even got some hands. So if he can stay on the field, and in that offense, that's an offense where the pass can set up the run instead of the run setting up the pass, which you traditionally think of. So Aaron Rodgers comes out, he airs it out. He goes to the ground when he sees those 6 defensive backs in the backfield, and a guy like Ryan Grant should be able to find some running room.
Yeah, I agree, and I think especially with the Greg Jennings injury, that we may see a little bit of a slowdown, not for the win. But Green Bay, I was even surprised this week. They were just blowing out Oakland. You would have thought they might have gone to the run game a little bit more. And so I'm wondering if they don't do that, these next couple of weeks. So I don't see how Green Bay doesn't get to 16-0. They got Kansas City this week. They have, let's see who they have next week. I don't even know if it matters, to be honest with you. They have Chicago next week. I can't see them not going 16-0. So, I think that bodes well for Ryan Grant, especially if he is the one true reliable back in the backfield right now. So, I'm pretty all in on Ryan Grant. I think that the toughest test might be in Week 17 against Detroit, but I think Detroit folded when they played them a couple of weeks ago. So, I'm not sure how much of a test that really is. I don't know that Detroit is really a playoff-ready football team right now.
No, they're another one. They started off the year looking great, and like what happened to Buffalo, and it's kind of got the same feel about it. It was like a feel-good story, there were 2 teams that you were happy to see that they were actually relevant again. I can't remember the last time without Barry Sanders' name being mentioned that Detroit was relevant, and pretty much the same for Buffalo. They had those 4 trips to the Super Bowl, which of course they lost all of them, but at least they could get there every year. And since those Jim Kelly days, they've been pretty much irrelevant. So it was, fun for me, watching football in the beginning of the season, the first half, to see these teams do well. It was exciting. But now I guess, their colors showing through. They're just showing that they're just barely, better than a 500 team.
Yeah, you're right. It's a shame for Detroit. Their story as they were winning earlier in the year, but it's football's a long, hard road. So it's 16 tough games, and you talk about fantasy, how even if you're down, if you're 1-5, if you can put together a couple game win streak, you're back into it. But at the same token, if you're 4-0, 6-2, you lose 3 games, all of a sudden you're 6-5, and your season's in jeopardy. So kind of the same thing. In keeping with Green Bay, we'll go with Greg Jennings. Obviously, we've already talked to him a little bit. His knee. I'm not exactly sure how many games he'll miss. I don't know if I'd expect him back in the regular season at all. So Greg Jennings is out. We talked a little bit about spreading the ball around a little bit more. I think there's a couple of receivers. May even make Donald Driver a little bit more relevant again. Who knows? Greg Jennings,
it's funny that you say that. Like when you look at, they've got so many weapons and they've got such a good quarterback who can put the ball where it needs to be. And let's face it, if you're in the NFL level, I don't care if you're a rookie or if you're a 10-year veteran like Donald Driver. These guys catch passes. You put the ball in their area and they're going to catch it. And Aaron Rodgers is a guy who's going to put the ball in your area. And what a great asset to have when you say somebody like a Donald Driver is 4th on their depth chart as far as 4th, maybe 5th as far as wide receivers go. With that being said, they're going to be fine. I don't think they're going to miss a hitch. I think they can just pretty much plug in anybody And between the James Jones, between Jordy Nelson, between the Donald Drivers. Don't forget they've got a great tight end in Finley. I mean, they've just got so much going for them. I mean, from a fantasy perspective, losing Greg Jennings, it's hurting me personally. I have him in a league, that I'm going into the playoffs, and I'm going to miss him. But as far as the Packers are concerned, I don't think they're going to skip a hitch at all. I think Aaron Rodgers is going to continue to put up his numbers, and I think anybody who's catching passes from him is going to benefit from it.
No, I agree. I mean, they still got weapons, and they're still going to win. They still got Aaron Rodgers. So if you're a Greg Jennings owner, obviously you're not feeling too good about it. But from a Green Bay, from an Aaron Rodgers perspective, things will be fine. So one last injury of note that we wanted to go over is Jeremy Maclin. Played a little bit in the Eagles game. I think he just kind of felt more of a tweak on his hamstring, and he sat out for the rest of the game. I'm not sure if you've heard any more on Jeremy Maclin. I think it's more of a precaution than anything else, but yeah, he did sit, which was a significant blow to people who were counting on him to come back and pick up where he left off. So what have you heard about Jeremy Maclin?
No, exactly. I haven't really heard much on him, but I think he's going to play. I don't like you just said. I think they sat him as more as just better safe than sorry type of mentality. They had that game pretty well in hand. It's not worth, especially like an injury like a hamstring where rest is exactly what it needs. So, if it was feeling a little tender, it's a little sore that day, no sense going out there and stretching it and pulling it and doing any more damage to it. I think he'll be fine. I expect him to play this week, and I expect him to probably finish out, the rest of the season playing. And now that they've got Vic back, I mean, that opens up a whole other new avenue and some exciting football. So I think, your Eagles, even though their season's done, if you have any Eagles, keep them in your lineup because that's an explosive offense, and they find a way to put up big numbers every week, even in their losses. So, Macklin's still going to be an asset for the next couple of weeks, and if you have him, I would start him with confidence.
Well, I hope you're right. I am in the semifinals for one of my ESPN leagues is a chat league with Casey Joyner, and so I'm pretty excited about that, so I can get in the playoffs there. I did start Maclin, and so I did take it personally when we sat out. But fortunately, I also had Doug Baldwin in the lineup, so he really came on for me on Sunday night and put me ahead. ESPN leagues are 2-week cumulative totals, so there's no wins or losses yet. But I did get ahead because of Baldwin, but I'm hoping that the tide can turn and Maclin strings me along for a victory next week. All right, guys. We're up at the second break time, and I want to thank everyone who's continuing to stay on. We are the Burlington Auto Group Kickass Fantasy Football Show, and again, we do have the toll-free lines that anyone wants to call in. It's 877-511-1024, and our Skype line is 347-599-5402, and we will welcome chat questions as well. So let's take another quick break. We'll come back. We'll discuss. There's a few minor updates on some of the injured players that have sat out the past couple of weeks, and then we'll go with some additions that you may want to make, surprise of the week, and then we'll finish up with our studs, and sleepers. So please stay with us, and let's take another minute for the Burlington Auto Group.
The only time he's ever been impressed is when he first saw his reflection. He's won the Indy 500 in Daytona. His pictures are worth 2,000 words. He's the most fascinating Volkswagen dealer in the world, and he's only at Burlington Volkswagen. Right now, drive home a new 2011 Jetta S for just $149 a month with $19.99 down. Or a new 2012 CC Sport, just $259 a month with $29.99 down.
You don't always buy a new Volkswagen, but when you do, buy a Burlington Volkswagen. Stay thrifty, my friends.
Burlington Volkswagen, minutes from Northeast Philadelphia, just off the Burlington-Bristol Bridge on Route 130. Like us on Facebook, and be sure to visit us online at burlingtonvw.com to see our featured vehicle of the week. It's better in Burlington. Volkswagen. Das Auto. VIN numbers BM 375314, CE 00357. Taxes, tags, and fees additional. Not all buyers will qualify. Call 888-791-2136 for lease details.
Okay, everybody, welcome back to the Burlington Auto Group Kickass Fantasy Football Show. I'm your host, Jumpin' John Prevo, and our resident guru for the evening is JB. So we've been through a lot, taken a couple calls, a couple chat room questions. We just got finished with our injuries of the week, and let's take a few moments and talk about some updates. There aren't that many, I don't think. There's two big names that are out there that are still injured. It's actually three. But we'll go over two of them just because I'm not really sure. Andre Johnson, I don't think anyone's expecting him back anytime soon. But we'll go with Darren McFadden. Just came out that it was blurted out over the air that he does, in fact, have a Liz Frank injury. And that's not good news for him, not good news for his fantasy owners this year. So Darren McFadden with the Liz Frank, I believe you can count him out for the year. What do you think, JB?
Yeah, no, it doesn't look very promising for him, and with the way that Bush has been moving the ball, like why would they even concern themselves and worry about it? Let the guy get healthy. Don't bring him back prematurely. Maybe if he's healthy enough, I don't know if they do get into the playoffs, if McFadden could be a factor, then it certainly wouldn't be a factor for us in the fantasy realm of things. But as far as the regular season, if he's on your bench, I think that's where he's going to sit. And if you're going to win your championship, unfortunately, you're going to have to do it without him. But if you were lucky enough to pick up Bush, we've always discussed on this show how much we like Bush, and we suggest that anybody in our listening audience that they like Bush as well. And and hopefully you were savvy enough to pick him up, and he picked up where Darren McFadden left off.
I love Bush. I'd play with Bush every week. I don't know why you wouldn't. I think Oakland would like to play with Bush every week. So, I think you're right. Just, let McFadden sit, and, he can watch, right? I mean, there's nothing wrong with that.
Let him watch Bush.
Yeah, let him watch Bush. It's kind of funny because I think that, obviously he's still hurt, so he wouldn't rush back. And let's face it, there's no way in hell they were going to beat Green Bay this week. And, I think Detroit's beatable, so if there was ever a chance that he could come back, this is the week, just because he's got that home run capability that Bush lacks. This would be the week that they want him back. But then, you got Kansas City next week, which I think is, should be a fairly easy victory, especially with what's going on in there. And then they got San Diego, and San Diego at Oakland. So, it's possible. I think the earliest is Week 17. But you're right. If they happen to make the playoffs, then I think they'd want him back.
Absolutely.
So we'll see what happens to McFadden, and we'll see what it means to Bush. And the other player, the biggest name that everyone wants to know, especially if he's on their team or if they might be playing against him, is Adrian Peterson. And it's bigger news. Again, Andre Johnson's out. I don't expect him back for the regular season. Adrian Peterson, there was talk he was going to return in Week 14. That didn't happen. What do you think might happen in Week 15, JP?
Well, I think if he's healthy, he'll play. And anything that I've seen, like you said, he's been making progress. And I think there's a chance he'll play this week. If you have him, he's definitely going to help you. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there with Adrian Peterson on their rosters who have made it into the playoffs. So they're sitting here with bated breath, just waiting to see if he's going to get the nod or not. But definitely, I think, obviously if he's healthy enough to play, you're going to start him. It's a no-brainer. You're going to get him in your lineup, and it's just one of those things where, I think that a lot of championships are going to be hinged on, when he comes back and how productive he is when he gets back. So, that's definitely an interesting development as it comes, throughout the week. Keep an eye on it. But I'm hopeful. I'm going to be an optimist, and I'm going to go out on a limb and say that he'll play this week.
Yeah, again, I'm actually going to go the opposite way, and I'm going to be a pessimist, and I'm going to say he's not going to. It's still early in the week, so obviously, may want to see, some of the practice reports, what's going on. I think Gerhardt has proven adequate enough in filling in for him, which surprised me a little bit, because I think it more has to do with, how
Percy
you play. Well, Percy Harvin has been part of it. New Orleans, the team, that they're going to be throwing the ball more than they are running the ball. Again, Minnesota has nothing to play for this year. So I'm not really sure. That they want to. Excuse me?
I see where you're going with that. Yeah, they have nothing to play for, so it's not worth hurting them. They may want him to be 100% before he sees the field. I understand that.
Yeah. And I don't see why you wouldn't do that. And obviously Adrian Peterson wants to play. Everyone who's a professional football player wants to play, but it's I don't know that it's in his best interest right now because I still don't think he's 100%. And the practice reports from last week I think proved that. I don't think he was less than a week away or just a week away. So I'm not expecting him back. So those are my 2 cents. So what do you think?
Well, maybe I can win back the $1 that we have going on the the Matt Hasselbeck situation.
All right, there you go. So I'm going to make sure I'm writing this down so you can't weasel out of it come next.
Nice.
Yes. Okay, so I just want to remind everyone this is the Burlington Auto Group Kickass Fantasy Football Show. We do a free website, which is www.kickassfantasyfootball.com. We also have a Wednesday night show, which has been hosting lately at 9 o'clock with the commissioner and the professor. And I also want to make a special note that next Wednesday at 7 p.m., is that right, JB? Next Wednesday
7 to 8 o'clock.
At 7 to 8, we will be on ESPN 97.3, which is local to the Philadelphia, New Jersey area. So it will be should be hosted by Matt Lowry, who has been out with a minor surgical procedure, and hopefully will be back and joining us, and professor and the commissioner. So
that's right. Wednesday, like the Jeffersons, we are moving on up. We are mentioned with the big boys now. ESPN Radio. That's exciting news. Our
8 o'clock Sunday show has been pretty successful for ESPN, and so they're giving us a little bit more of a shot during prime time. So that's ESPN 97.3, 7 to 8 p.m. Wednesday the 21st, and we do have our 8 o'clock to 8 a.m. show on Sunday morning. So just please, everyone, tens and tens of loyal listeners out there, tune in to ESPN. All right, so we want to go over real quick. We had a lot of injury this week, and there's actually a discussion JB and I had before the show, and we were talking about this time of the year. There's usually just not much on the waiver wire. Teams are in the semifinals, possibly in their finals. You're not taking chances. You're not picking up garbage off the waiver wires. You don't have 5 weeks to worry about. So let's take a look at the ads that can really help you this week. Obviously there's a couple quarterbacks that could be in the mix if you're in a 2-quarterback league. That's probably the only time you're really looking at any of these. There's J.P. Lossman, who's filling in for Matt Moore, John Skelton in for Kevin Cobb, Jake Locker in for Matt Hasselbeck, and then T.J. Yates continues to excite everyone in Houston, and Rex Grossman, who has come on for Washington last couple of games. So, JB, or any, again, we're not talking starters on your championship team, although, strange things have happened, but, are any of them reliable for the next 2 weeks?
Well, you know what, with T.J. Yates and Rex Grossman, they've at least been able to show some consistency for some sustained amount of time. We really don't know what we're going to get. We discussed what happens with Skelton. You don't know if you're getting the good Skelton, the bad Skelton. Locker, he just hasn't really had too much playing time this year. I'm sorry?
The skeleton in your closet?
The skeleton in the closet, absolutely, and whether he's going to remain there or if he's going to actually come out. And then, like Lossman, there's still a lot of question marks around it. So, like, a lot of those guys, we talked about, and we've seen flashes from them, but really, T.J. Yates, he's come in, and he's taken that team to their first ever divisional championship, their first ever playoff appearance, and, he's proven that he's pretty reliable. And then good old Sexy Rexy, like you said, he's been putting up some numbers. And, even though Washington's out of it as far as, real football, quote-unquote, goes, he's been putting up some solid fantasy numbers. So, if I was in a position, or like you were saying, a two-quarterback type, league, and you're looking for a little help, Yates and Grossman, I would say, would be the ones that I could kind of give the nod towards. As far as Lossman, Skelton, and Locker, I don't have enough faith there yet.
I agree with your assessment. I don't know why. I actually do have a little bit of faith in Jake Locker. He's got Indianapolis coming up. He's got Jacksonville following him. Jacksonville's lost a couple of defensive backs, so they're kind of hurting in that passing arena. Again, to rely on a rookie quarterback, obviously Cam Newton's kind of been an exception this year, as well as maybe Andy Dalton. But, I do have a little bit of faith in Locker. I think he's shown that he can be a quarterback. For Yates, let me tell you his next two games, it's a mixed bag for him because he's got Carolina, and then he has Indianapolis coming up. And while both are poor defenses, both have been really susceptible to the run, and Houston has two fantastic running backs. So, from a pure football standpoint, he'll be fantastic in both of those games. But from a fantasy standpoint, I'm not exactly sure because, again, they can just run over both teams and call it a day. As for Washington, they have the New York Giants, who just got dissected, by Tony Romo. They won, but this is fantasy, right? And then in Week 16, they have Minnesota, who's just been horrendous against the pass. So I agree with your assessment about they're both more reliable. But if I'm going to pick one, I'm picking Sexy Rexy.
There you go. T-Rex,
jumping
back in full force.
Yeah. So, those are the quarterbacks. So, let's talk about some additions from the running back position. I think the two that are going to be the biggest effect for you, we've already talked about, Felix Jones and Ryan Grant. And, I think both of them, surprisingly, are available in enough leagues. They definitely were last week. Felix Jones and Ryan Grant, I think both of those are running backs that you can pick up and can help you win a fantasy championship. I think both of those deserve, especially if you have a three-running back league or have that flex capabilities, I think they deserve to be in your starting lineup. What do you think?
No, absolutely. For a flex spot, I think they both get a nod towards a flex spot. And, and who knows, if if you're one of these, if you have a team and you've suffered some injuries late in the game, late in the season, and you're looking for a little help, they can definitely help you. But if it's, but if you have a flex position, I would love to see Felix Jones in my flex spot every week right now. Like, I think that would just help me through. You got the starting running back for the Dallas Cowboys. That's saying something, and I'll take that any day of any week.
Yeah, I definitely think it's a help. And, so if you had DeMarco Murray and he's gone, there's Felix Jones. So if he's available, I think both of those, you go out and you grab them as quickly as you can. The other one that went down from a running back, or the other running back that may actually help you in the next coming week. So I think it's Keelan Williams for San Francisco. I think, Gore's been battling some injury problems, whether they're announced or not. I think he does have some issues. So, again, I'm not relying on him. I think he'd want to hear something about an injury or see something more from Williams before you use him. But, if you have a roster spot, it'd actually be worth a flyer to pick him up. So what do you think about Williams?
Yeah, I would have to earlier in the year, I think he would be more attractive to me. Your playoff time now, and our listening audience, the guys who are lucky enough to still be playing. I don't know. I don't know if I would, going forward into a championship, I would have to think I might have better on my team than to worry about starting him in my hopes to win a championship. But that's in my opinion.
No, and I agree. I'm just kind of, again, for someone like him, you're looking at, maybe if there's another injury or something happens like that. I'm just talking, as a roster space, as someone who may have some potential in the next week or two. So, I think the first two we talked about, for Jones and Grant, those
definitely
are
running
back.
Impact.
Yeah, and I think Williams just, just keep an eye on him. Let me go next. I want to jump to the wide receivers, and I want to jump to the Washington wide receivers, just for the reason that we already talked about their upcoming schedule, and I think Washington, I think there's a lot of opportunity there. It's hard to rely on them, and it took how many weeks to say, hey, we can rely on Roy Helu, but again, so let's take a look at Washington's next two games. Division game against the New York Giants, who've had some defensive issues lately, and then they have a Week 16 matchup against Minnesota, who just been torched by the pass, and so there's definitely some opportunity there, I think, in Washington. A couple wide receivers. Everyone knows about Santana Moss, or supposedly knows about Santana Moss, but Jabbar Gaffney had 92 yards and a touchdown, and Dante Stallworth had 96 yards. So those are the. Again, if you're hurting, if you're in a pretty deep league, I think all three of them might be worth a look. So,
or if you lost Greg Jennings, like I just did. I'm still scrambling. We were talking before the show, and I really don't know what I'm going to do. Like, is picking up one of these guys going to help my team, or do I go with? I think I told you before. I've got Santonio Holmes, I've got Antonio Brown, I've got other guys, and I don't know what to do. I mean, trying to fill Greg Jennings' shoes, from a fantasy perspective, it's tough, and you're almost like you're saying, look towards the matchup, and just I guess that's what I have to do, and what a lot of people are going to have to do who lost somebody of his caliber is just trying to find somebody that you can plug in there for the next 2 weeks and hopefully get 10 to 15 points out of, because, let's face it, at this time of year, anyone you're going to pick up, you're probably not going to, you probably can't hope for more than that. If you get 50, 60 yards and a touchdown out of somebody to replace your stud, you have to take it and be happy.
Yeah, I'll tell you, you hate to say it. Everyone thinks they're smart and have all the moves in fantasy football, but a lot of it's luck. And, a lot of it, there's decisions, that's why I wrote my if-only column, why I started it and why I enjoy writing it every week. Because it's not, I don't want to just say, geez, I wish I played James Jones instead of Dante Stallworth. How dumb could I be? Well, no, it's not that you were dumb. Here's the reasons why, maybe in hindsight you should have played him, but here's the reasons why it wasn't the right move, or here's the reasons why going forward this is the right move. Because, however you want to analyze them, however, you can pick the names out of a hat, you can do whatever you want. It's, some of it, let's face it, comes down to some dumb luck. And there's decisions like that, especially this week, that you may make the right decision and it's going to win you a championship and you can look like the smartest person in the world, or you can be like me and you can drop Jerome Harrison, the day he goes off on Oakland for, 800 yards and 6 touchdowns and lose your just don't know. And, sometimes it's decisions like that make or break you. So, I don't know. But, that brings up, though, the other pair of wide receivers that you're going to want to talk about, and that's Donald Driver and James Jones. I think from Green Bay's perspective, Jordy Nelson, I think as you mentioned before, he's going to be moving up into that number one slot, and then you got some other people that may step up, and got James Jones and Donald Driver. Are you wanting to rely on either of them for your fantasy championship? Probably not, but who's available? If you just lost Jennings or someone else, who's available? And they're available in a lot of leagues. I know James Jones is probably on a few more rosters than Donald Driver, but so what do you think in Green Bay?
Yeah, well, we've discussed them throughout the year. Like a team like Green Bay, and they're generally speaking they're boom or bust type of guys, but in the absence of Jennings, you have to think there's a little bit more boom there, or I think so anyway, because, Rodgers in that offense, they love to throw the ball, and like we said, he can get the ball where it needs to be. So if you're a recipient of those passes, they're going to come your way. So you just have to keep your eyes open and your hands up. And I think he's going to find the open man.
Yeah, I tell you what, we have a pretty interesting question from the chat room right now, and a couple of folks that we've just gotten through talking about actually, and a couple of good fantasy matchups coming up. And so he's going. It's a PPR league, and his question is Roy Helu or Felix Jones.
Wow.
Yeah.
If given on this Felix Jones, if I have to go with my knee-jerk reaction, the first thing, like, if given the opportunity, and I had one of those two guys and I was going to start him, I'd start Felix Jones. I like the system better. I like the way that I think Dallas overall has a better offense, and I just think in a situation like that, you just go with the better team. They may not be, when you started the year or whatever, that might not have been the two guys you thought would have been having the starting jobs for those respective teams. However, I think Dallas is the better offense, and I would have to go with the better team.
He actually just got back to me. I'm sorry, I misspoke as a non-PPR, which actually even slants it more towards Jones.
Towards what I just said. Absolutely. Because, he can catch.
Yeah, so, I think, hey, if Helu's in your lineup, he's in several of mine, and, I think he's a good option. But, if you're comparing the two players, I think there's more upside with Felix Jones, and I think that's what you really have to look for at this point. I think Helu is sort of capped. He's had some good games, but not some great games. But Felix Jones came in relief and scored, and got 100 yards, and I think there's just a little bit more there for Felix Jones. So that's what I'm going with. But boy, that's a pretty tough call. I like how you mentioned it. Not two players who you were thinking of last year, beginning of the year, to be riding to a fantasy championship. So,
sure.
Other players I wanted to mention real quick, and Marius Thomas from Denver. He's on some rosters, not on every roster, and do you think he should be? Especially with Denver going up against New England this week. What do you think about Marius Thomas?
Well, it's as a player, I think he's very talented. I think he's a good player. I just don't like Tim Tebow as a quintessential pocket passer, and he's got a little bit of talent around him. So I don't know. I just don't put enough stock in the guy getting the ball to him. That's my feelings on it.
No, I agree. What actually seems to happen with Thomas is he gets behind the coverage or blown coverage, and he's fast, and he sneaks in that touchdown. And it really only takes one big play like that to really make your fantasy value. So again, I think we're talking position, wide receiver 3 positions, and that's kind of the definition of it. Someone who you're not expecting the big game from him every week, but could some really high point potential. And so, I kind of like him if you're really in a bind, especially this week when Denver plays New England, because, I'm not expecting Tebow to throw for, 30 completions or 300 yards, but it only takes one or two completions to make a fantasy wide receiver's day. So that's kind of where I'm going with Demaryius Thomas. And then the last receiver I just wanted to hit on, we talked about him on our Wednesday night show because I think it was the commissioner had Golden Tate as someone he wanted to get in his lineup, out of the box, wanted to get in the lineup, and I took him to it, and I said, it's not going to be Tate, it's going to be Baldwin. And I think, just trying to pat myself on the back a little bit, and I think Baldwin's a good pickup. He is a rookie, but I think he's really, really picked it up in Seattle and come along strong. And, Seattle, you think of Marshawn Lynch when you think of Seattle. But I think, Doug Baldwin, again, you're looking for that wide receiver 3, that flex. You got to fill that injury. And Doug Baldwin's someone you want to get in your lineup. So I'm not exactly sure how well Seattle's going to light it up the next couple of weeks, but I think Doug Baldwin, right now, in my standpoint, might be the receiver to go with. So
sure.
You sound so convinced. Sure, why not? Right?
Yeah, well, it's a Seattle offense, so I don't know. No, I hear you. I mean, I think he might be the best receiver on that team, but that's like saying, if you're the best batter for the Pittsburgh Pirates right now, it doesn't. So I don't know. I definitely think the guy's got tons of upside. Like you said, he's a great young receiver. I just don't know how much he's going to. Again, see, everything to me just comes down to where we are at in the year. And I would be nervous if I had to put him in my starting lineup in hopes to win a championship right now.
All right, so I'll tell you what, JB, we got about 3 minutes left, so let's go real quick. Surprise of the week. What's your surprise of the week?
Well, if we have the time, I'm not going to really get into it, but just the Giants in Dallas and the Dallas's complete collapse 2 weeks in a row, and as surprised I was last week, I was even surprised even more this Sunday. How they lost the game. They had a 12-point lead, 5 minutes left in the game, and just poor clock management, and they let the game get away.
All right. My biggest surprise of the week, I think, was Sean Green. He was left for dead early in the year, and then he had 88 yards and 3 touchdowns against Washington. But then again, I kind of looked at that and said, okay, he had the 3 touchdowns with, only 88 yards, and then he came back again against Kansas City and had 129 yards and a touchdown. And, I think that's surprising. Philadelphia and the Giants coming up, so I think Sean Green. And that's going to lead into my sleeper of the week, my studs, and sleeper. And I'm actually going with, I'm sorry, go ahead, JB. Let's get your studs, and sleeper of the week. Let's get that in. We've got 90 seconds left.
All right, I'm going to do it real fast. My stud is Reggie Bush. He's been playing well, and Buffalo hasn't been. My dud, Stevie Johnson. Miami's been playing well, like I just said, and something you touched on with the defensive coordinator coming in and taking over the head coaching role. I think his secondary is going to step up, and I think Stevie Johnson's going to have a tough day against Miami. And my sleeper this week is Carson Palmer.
All right. I'm going my start of the week, Matt Ryan. He had 320 yards and 4 touchdowns last week. Jacksonville's down a couple corners, so get Matt Ryan in your lineup. My sleeper of the week is actually going to be Felix Jones. I was thinking of Sean Green, but, 106 yards in relief last week, and Felix Jones has Tampa Bay this week. So for PPS, there you go. Felix Jones is my sleeper of the week. And then my dud of the week, I'm going to go a little bit out of the box here and go Beanie Wells. I know Cleveland, you've been ran against pretty heavily lately, but they came to play against Pittsburgh. I think they keep it up. I think John Scalp's in for a day, and Larry Fitzgerald's in for a long day. Thank you, everyone, for listening. I want to make sure you go on for our Wednesday night show at 9 o'clock with the Commissioner and Professor. So thank you for the Burlington Auto Group Kickass Fantasy Football Show.